My next guest is a reporter for the UFC on FS1. She's also a correspondent for Invicta FC, and you've probably seen her every Tuesday on Dana White's Contender Series. It's Laura Sanko joining me here on the program for the very first time. Laura, how are you?
I'm doing well, James. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Appreciate you joining me here. Where are you headed to on this Saturday?
Well, I just got done working out, which is why I'm kind of a hot mess at the moment. And I did my daily run to Starbucks.
Okay.
Which is where I'm sitting in a Starbucks parking lot right now.
Oh, good stuff. Okay, well, I appreciate you making me part of your post-workout. That's very nice of you. But I wanted to sort of start with your backstory. You also fought. You had a brief career in mixed martial arts. How did you first get involved in combat sports?
I grew up doing karate like a lot of other kids do, on a fairly casual basis, but enjoyed it. I got my black belt when I was a teenager, and then I really didn't do anything through college and probably a couple of years after college, and just kind of went through a tough time in my personal life and needed an outlet where while I was doing it, I couldn't think about anything else. And I thought, man, martial arts really did that for me before. Let's find something new. But I wanted to kind of take it to the next level and do something I felt was a little bit more practical, realistic. And I just really stumbled on MMA. Funny enough, I don't know if you know who Rob Kimmons is, but he's an old
UFC veteran. He fought in the UFC, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. So I actually accidentally stumbled on Rob Kimmons working out in a gym with another local guy, and it was just the two of them grappling a little bit, and I thought it looked interesting, and I went over and asked him, what it was, and I kind of got the okay look, like all right, go back to your 10-pound dumbbells.
Really? Okay.
But I don't mean to throw him under the bus, because we quickly became good friends, and that's how I started, and then lived in New York for a little while, trained there, and then came back to Kansas City, and that's when I got hooked up with what was at the time Grindhouse, which is now Glory.
Yep. Excellent. Good stuff. And obviously, you fought twice as an amateur. You also fought once as a pro. You defeated Cassie Robb. You fought more. Let's hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually fought 8 times as an amateur.
Okay.
And 1 time as a pro, and I was 8-1 overall.
Interesting. Okay, because Tapology for some reason only had 2-year fights on there. That's why I was kind of confused. So that's interesting. We got to get that fixed up. But I was going to say that the fight I remember was the fight when you fought Cassie Robb on that Invicta card in 2013. Why did you end up retiring? Because most fighters don't retire when they have a winning record.
Yeah, I was in camp for my next fight. And I didn't like how my last cut went. I'm way too small to ever compete at strawweight. I walk around at like 115, 114. But by the same token, getting to 105, I know it sounds silly, but getting to 105 is hard. So I thought I'd be cool and switch up my birth control to help me cut my water weight a little bit better for my next fight. And in the switching, my husband accidentally took advantage of the lapse in birth control, so I got pregnant.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. Okay, yeah, because you were supposed to fight on another Invicta card, if I'm not mistaken.
I was in camp. I was ready to go, excited to fight Olivia. Wait, I can't remember her name. Luxembourg was her last name. Anyway, so yeah, that'll put a break on things real quick when you get pregnant.
Okay, so then I'm guessing your priorities changed at that point, being a mother, and then you're just like, this fighting thing, whatever.
And part of it too, there are a lot of women that are able to juggle both successfully, and first off, hats off to them, I should say. It's very, very impressive to me. But part of it too was, at that time, Invicta wasn't as big of a deal. The UFC didn't have women yet, and they still don't have my weight class. So the future for, like, why would I want to sacrifice so much to really pour my life into this? And I'm kind of an all or nothing person. If I can't dedicate 100% to something, I kind of don't want to do it. So a lot of people have asked, why did it continue, or why I wouldn't come back? And that's the real answer, is that I love it and I miss it, but there's not enough of a goal or payout, I guess, to really, really
to sacrifice all this stuff to go and do it. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, to take away time from my family, it would have to be a big thing.
Right, for sure. Okay, fair enough. I definitely can appreciate that. Now, I also saw that you were doing work for Invicta as well. How did that initially get hooked up with you doing stuff for them?
It was the very first thing I did was just a one-off 3-minute random interview with Marloes Kunin. And Shannon told me later, she said, I just saw something in you. She said, I could tell that you were, relatively poised and obviously knew the sport. And so I thought I'd try it out. So I did this one-off interview, and I didn't hear anything from Shannon for months and months and months. And I thought, well, that must have not gone very well. And then I just got a phone call randomly one December, and she said, hey, we're thinking of switching things up on the broadcast team a little bit, splitting up the role between the color commentator and the person who actually goes into the ring and does the interviews, as well as sideline reporting, things like that. Would you like to do it? And I said yes, but I mean, the only other time I'd ever been on camera was that one-off interview. I had no background in this whatsoever. So yeah, I definitely had to learn on the fly on live television with zero experience.
Must have been a little nerve-wracking, just a little bit.
Oh, it was totally nerve-wracking. I remember my husband calling me after the first show, and I said, oh, what'd you think? How'd I do it? He said, well, you sort of sounded like you had a stroke, but because I was
encouraging husband.
I was speaking so slowly and so carefully because I was so worried about tripping over my words or losing my thought that I just, and going back and watching, it's pretty funny.
So how did you go from that to the Contender Series? Because they're both on Fight Pass. I imagine that sort of helped, right?
Yeah, it did. So I actually, initially, the first jump was to work for the UFC in a Fox Sports 1 capacity, which I still do. I'm just taking a break so that I can concentrate on the Contender Series. So I had a very random contact at Fox, and I had always obviously I wanted to work for the UFC as well, if I could do that. And it's a very long story, but through this contact, I was able to kind of get my foot in the door, sent them a reel of some of my interviews that I'd done for Invicta, and they let me come out to Fox and audition. And I got the reporter gig. Now there's a little bit of I don't want to say pecking order, but Megan O'Leary is obviously the main reporter, but people like Heidi and myself kind of fill in schedule-wise. There's so many fights. There's no way that one person.
Yeah, it would be so overwhelming to do all those events, right? Because there's so many. Like
there are times where it's literally impossible. So there's a small stable of us reporters, and then this summer I just again kind of random phone call, and they said, "Hey, we've got this new show. We want you to be a part of it." And I'm honored that I was the first person that they hired. So
very cool.
It's been fun. Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest challenges with this new role, being a host for the Contender Series?
Oh, gosh. Well, traveling every week is hard.
Okay. I guess going to Vegas. That's true, because you live in Missouri, right? So, yeah, that would be difficult.
Yeah. It is. It's an easy flight, but just juggling life. I do a lot of work for my husband's businesses. I have just, life, other things going on. That I can manage, but I kind of use the analogy like when you go to the beach and you're super excited to be at the beach and you're in the waves and that first wave comes and it's so much fun and you're just so excited to be at the beach. And then that second wave comes just a smidge too soon. And just, that kind of surprised me. And then the third wave comes significantly too soon. And by the time the fourth one comes, you're underwater and you're not sure what's going on. So it's just, the pace of it has been very intense, but it's been good. And I love that my role continues to grow. I think it's safe to say that Bruce Buffer does not have to worry about
I was going to say, yeah, that's true, yeah.
And yet another thing that I continue to do for the first time on live television, which I'm kind of a perfectionist. I don't enjoy learning how to do something in front of a bunch of people, but, is what it is.
No, for sure. The feedback I've seen overwhelmingly has been positive. I mean, and it's a tough gig that you have because, especially with MMA fans, they're so critical. Have you gotten any sort of negative feedback at all? Because it seems like it's all been great.
Just go to YouTube.
Oh, really? Okay. That's surprising because I don't know. I kind of gauge it on Twitter, right? Because you sort of see what people are saying,
yeah.
and just all the time, it's usually just very positive things. So that's great.
I actually agree with you. I feel like I do feel like Twitter's kind of the middle of the road. You're going to get positive. You're going to get negative. YouTube is where
the cesspool. I get it all. Trust me. Speaking my language, I get it. And the biggest like nitpicking things you would not imagine. I just I don't get it. So.
I mean, graphic. Don't ever let your kids look. And then on the other end of the spectrum, like the biggest the biggest critique I continue to get is that I touch the fighters during the interview, and of course they take that in a million directions. But for anybody who, and I've had some normal people ask, like, why do you do that? Here's the deal. I have to, what people don't realize is how close I have to stand to them to get a reasonable looking shot. And they subconsciously don't want to be anywhere near me because they're covered in sweat. They've got adrenaline rushing through them. They might have blood on them. I'm all like dressed up and nice looking. And so they want to keep their normal personal space. And so if I take a step forward, they just keep taking a step back. And you'll actually see in a couple interviews before I started doing that, like the guy ended up like in the corner and I'm still trying to get close enough to him. So the reason I grab them is because I'm trying to keep them close to me and for them to know that it's okay that you're sweaty. It doesn't bother me, like let's just have a conversation. So that's the main one.
And kind of on that same note, I got to ask because, female reporter and everything, do you get the creepers? Are the creepers coming out every once in a while, with the crowd, the weird comments? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're all there. I've had people want to suck my feet and all sorts of fun stuff.
Okay. Fair enough. But is this something new or is that something you've always had to deal with?
Well, no, it's certainly ramping up as I'm getting a little bit more exposure. But this is what I tell people. Like, I have spent, first off, I grew up with an older brother and all of his friends. Second of all, I've been in an MMA gym pretty much every day for the past 10 years. I am not easily offended. Yeah,
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I could see that.
And I, if anything, I find it funny. I mean, there's some stuff that I'm like, okay, that's too much. And but I blow it out. It doesn't affect me. For the most part, I find it funny.
Okay, good stuff. What has sort of been the highlight for you so far this season, whether it's the fights or just any, the experience of even working there? Is there anything that sort of stood out for you?
I mean, for me personally, it's been the experience of working there. I never in a million years did I think that Snoop Dogg was going to be a coworker of mine. That to me is crazy. Like last week was unbelievable because I got a chance to hang out with him. Literally just he and I had a 30-minute conversation in his trailer in a cloud.
Yes.
And then I went to his concert afterward with a bunch of people from Jackson's and, it's fun. It's just a ton of fun. I honestly, as stressful as it is at times, I for sure have the best job in the world. I love it.
Yeah, well, you do a really great job at it. Again, I really enjoy, just getting to see you interact with the fighters. And one of the guys you got to speak with last week, who's a guy I've interviewed for years, is Grant Dawson, someone I know you're familiar with quite well.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about that just because, you've trained with Grant, you know him quite well. Is it tough at all, trying not to be biased, when we're doing these interviews and everything? Is that something you've struggled with at all?
It's not biasness because I am aware. Here's the thing. I think two things. I'm not a journalist,
right?
Because
true.
I work for the UFC, and I make no bones about that. I work for the UFC. I'm interviewing UFC fighters. Number two, if they put a reporter back there like myself that has fighting experience, it comes part and parcel that I know a lot of these guys. Some of them I'm close with, some of them I've never met before. I wouldn't say I have anybody I have a problem with at all. So, but I make a conscious effort. If I had been interviewing Grant's opponent and he had won, I would have been incredibly happy for him because, and this is the truth, in that moment, like what I feel is that little piece of what I felt when I won. And I can only imagine what it is for them tenfold on a way bigger stage with a way bigger opportunity. So I genuinely care about all these guys and would never interview somebody differently. That being said,
I was going to say Grant winning was pretty cool though. I mean, it's especially
Julian Marquez used to train with us for years and years. Honestly, Julian and I used to be super close. Like, and we still are, but I used to see him more often. And there are definitely moments where when it's a guy that I've trained with, or someone like Tim Elliott that I interviewed on Fox, I almost started crying when I interviewed Tim. And my producers were like, "Okay, we get that you're close, but we maybe need to like keep some."
Reel it back a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, so proud of Grant, so proud of Julian, but really just being a part of any fighter's moment where they've just won what for them is likely the biggest fight of their career is just so cool. I don't care who you are, where you're from. If you just beat a friend of mine, I'm still going to be happy for you. I'm still going to love to talk to you about your experience.
Yeah, and I think the coolest part about both those guys you mentioned is that, for those who have followed their career, knew how good they were, and to finally see them get this opportunity and take advantage of it, I think was so cool, especially with Grant, because, Grant had some issues last year with weight cutting, and finally, he's here and he's a UFC fighter, so I thought that was cool.
Yes, and I don't know if you saw it, I did a separate interview with Grant.
I did in the hotel room, yeah.
Because, and I did it with him and God goodness, I'm forgetting her name at the moment. I'm so sorry. But I did that because, partly I did it with Grant because as long as I've known him, I didn't know any of that about him. I knew none of that. And I feel like, especially with these Contender Series fighters, and you do such a fantastic job of it. You really do. I mean, you're my first place I go where I'm like, oh, I want to learn about so-and-so. And you're the first person I Google. It's important to know their stories, I feel like. I had no idea that those issues that Grant had dealt with growing up. I just see him at the gym every day. He's like, he's a gym brother to me. So I think it's easier to get behind someone when you can identify with them and maybe you have a shared experience with them, and it just makes rooting for them so much more meaningful.
My last question for you here. I know you're an equestrian as well. You do some horseback riding. Did you still have time to do that? I know right now probably not, but are you doing that, at all kind of outside this crazy schedule?
I haven't been lately, and it's been killing me. And the weather here in Kansas City just turned to that beautiful, we're going to have hopefully 70-degree weather for, 6 or 8 weeks here. And now that the Contender Series is kind of starting to wrap up, I hope to get back into it a little bit. I don't know if I'll have enough time to get my skills back up to par where I feel like I could compete so quickly. But if nothing else, just get back out there and ride. When I don't ride, I lease my horse out to another woman so that he can stay busy, because the last thing you want to do is have a well-trained horse just kind of hanging out. So.
Well, Laura, it was a blast getting a chance to talk to you on here. I really appreciate it. Just remind people where they can find you on social media and anything you got coming up, any thank yous or anything like that. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Please check me out. Instagram is probably where I'm the most active, at Laura_Sanko. That other Laura Sanko got to everything before I could get there. Same handle on Twitter. And my biggest sponsor is Purist Labs. It's Uri Faber's company. They do an awesome line of supplements, pre-workout, protein. I highly recommend you at least give it a try. It's probably the best stuff I've ever tried in terms of taste and efficacy. What do I have coming up? I have the last week of the Contender Series. You're not going to want to miss that one, week number 8. And I'm sure that we'll be making some announcements about when you might see the series coming back. So
stay tuned.